Hello, my name is Caleb D. Wilson. I believe that Jesus is the Jewish Messiah according to Jewish standards. I follow an institution called Messianic Judaism, where I consider myself a Messianic Gentile. Today, I wanted to do a special episode where I'm going to have my Messianic Jewish Rabbi, Rabbi Darin Katz, react to a video by an ex-Muslim, now Christian, named Sam Shamoun. And I wanted to introduce this video by talking about a couple terms. There's going to be the term Zionism, and I don't want to assume that people know what this term means, so I want to make sure I explain that. Zionism is the belief that the Jewish people have a right to their homeland, that they have a right to be self-governed, and that the land of Israel is allotted to them. So one of the things that is going to happen is that the idea is going to be proposed that believing that the Jewish people have a right to their homeland is against the premise of the gospel. And so that's one of the things that we're going to get into in this video. One of the other terms that needs to be defined is the term Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin were the 70 leaders, the 70 leaders that were governing Israel at the time that Jesus has come. So the Sanhedrin were a mixture of a lot of different rabbinical groups, such as the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Essenes. So one of the things that the Sanhedrin had the ability to do is the Sanhedrin had the authority to establish Jesus as the Messiah and take the throne of David. And so there is a common misconception that Jesus only debates the Pharisees, but Jesus actually spends a lot of time talking to different rabbinical groups. And the Sanhedrin is not just made up of Pharisees, it's made up of other rabbinical groups. So I just wanted to give you a quick gloss of terms so that when we go over some of these concepts, we're not going to necessarily define them quite like that. So I wanted to make sure you understood some of these terms as we go into this video. And please enjoy this video. Hey, Darin, how are you doing today?
As I said to you, happy to be with you. Literally missed a flight this morning. So I had to book a second flight right after that, and I was panicked about missing this session, but I'm here, so finally relaxed and ready to jump in.
Awesome. Yeah, we do. There is a lot in this video. There is a lot to uncover, and so, Darin, I think what I'm going to have you do is we're just going to go react to. There's a lot of things that we're going to react to. There's a what's his name? An ex-Muslim, now Christian, named Sam Shamoun, and he is going to be talking to this woman. I think she's Jewish. I don't know for sure, but something tells me she might be Jewish. And his arguments are going to be about, it's really just going to be a lot of anti-Israel, anti-Zionist propaganda and theology that he's going to present. And I thought it would be really cool for you as an expert, as somebody who has studied the scriptures in depth, who knows the Torah in and out, to react to someone's theology.
Yeah.
And be able to, I guess, dispense with it, and to how do we deal with some of those scriptures. Right. So, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing the screen. I'm just going to start playing this video.
Pro-Zionist.
I mean, the whole Bible, you can't be Christian and be anti. So
no, it's not about being anti-Jewish. You can't be. Jesus is Jew. The greatest creature that God created was a Jewish woman named the Blessed Mother. That's not what we're talking about. There's a difference between not being anti-Jewish and being pro-Zionist. You said you're pro-Israel. That means you're pro-Zionist. Why?
Well, because in the Bible, it's mapped that is their land, and that's where the
colonization
will take place.
Or were you taught they're still God's chosen people?
Yes.
Yeah, bad theology.
Okay.
New Testament's
We're already really deep into this. There's a lot of things he just said that needs to be talked about. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the first thing we should discuss is being the idea of being pro-Zionist is somehow bad, and that the nation that the nation of Israel has been replaced. What would you say to that?
I feel like I could write books in response to that. I think the first thing that I note with what he said there was he notes Jesus is Jewish and then turns around and says that being pro-Zionist is not logical. And I'm not sure what he thinks Jesus' Jewishness then means, if not being directly linked to being Zionist. And I can tell you a simple reason why, one of the simple reasons why my mind goes there. The concept of being Jewish in the first century, since he's talking about Jesus, has absolutely everything to do with being Zionist, because being Zionist was a political position you took. Jesus is a Jew in the fullest sense of being from the tribe of Judah. And at that time, Judah and Jerusalem was where the political agenda was run from. So literally they were in the area that's called Zion. So I don't know where this guy is falling out, like what he honestly thinks, how he can separate being Jewish from being a Zionist. I can't even begin to imagine. I don't know where he's getting his ideas from.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about, is like where would he get that from the prophets? Because I read in Ezekiel and Isaiah, and it seems like they have an idea that the Jews are going to return back to their homeland eventually. Right. Not that they've been replaced.
Right. Which is, again, the question I'd ask him right off the bat is, you acknowledge Jesus is Jewish. I would want to ask him, what does it mean when you say Jesus is Jewish? Because that's a definitive label. It's an ethnic, it's a political label too, because, again, Jesus wasn't born into the tribe of Judah for no reason. It's the heartbeat of Jewish belief, and the expectation of a Messiah relies on a son of David to come. And Jesus is from that tribe. So it's political, which makes Zion pretty much the Washington, D.C. of Israel. So I don't know, like a part of me wants to say that this guy's playing a joke, and that at the end of the video he's got to tell everyone he was just kidding, because what he's saying is completely illogical, actually. I mean, we'd have to see what
Zion,
else he says, but that is... I can't believe someone has gone online and actually opened up his video, and he's clearly doing some sort of apologetics, but he's opened up his video with a statement like that. I don't know how he gets there. I don't know how he's going to sustain that.
Well, I've seen the whole thing, and there's a lot that he's going to tell you. I'm going to give you a little bit of a precursor that he's going to talk about who the real Jews are. He apparently thinks he knows what the real Jews, and guess what? They're not Jews. But I want to ask you, because you said Zion, and is that like a synonym for Jerusalem?
Absolutely. That's it. That is the core thing. And this is the thing. If you look at where Jesus is born, within the area of Jerusalem, okay, he's not born in Jerusalem, but he operates in that area. Where does he die? He goes to Jerusalem. Where does he claim he'll return to? And the angels say he'll return to Jerusalem. That's political. And I know this is difficult for Gentiles like the Sam guy to understand, which is why he probably shouldn't be talking about what he doesn't know. But to a Jew, if we talk salvation, okay, so we know when we talk Jesus, we talk salvation. How do I as a Jew see salvation first? The first thing to me is, I want to see a Messiah. Now watch this. Do I want to see a Messiah in the United States, in Africa, in New Zealand, where I am? No. That's useless to a Jew. Where do we want to see a Messiah? We want to see a Messiah in Zion. And that is kind of concentrated on the hill, which is where Jerusalem is, on a mount. Well, we call it Mount Zion, and that's why you see mountains are so important in Jewish history. It's all over the place, because that will kind of be where the throne is set up on earth. So for a Jew, when we think salvation, we don't think a cross. And I'm not saying the cross doesn't count. I believe the cross counts, but that's not the first thing I think. I first think a son of David ruling from the throne in Jerusalem or Zion. And again, the hill of Zion, the mountain of Zion. And that's what the prophets speak about. So I don't know what scriptures this guy can fall back on in Tanakh, in the Old Testament, so to speak. I don't know where he's going to get evidence to support that, because again, I think salvation, yes, I think Jesus, I know he died on the cross, but that's not the end point. The end point, he has to come back. If he doesn't come back, it's not good news to Jews. You know, we look at what's going on in Israel right now, and the issue with Arabs that claim they've got Palestine. It's an insult. It's an insult to anyone who knows history.
Mm-hmm.
So what does salvation look like to Jews,
Absolutely.
especially after October 7th? It looks like a Messiah coming to Jerusalem, again, Zion, and ruling as a son of David. That is political. So this guy contradicts himself as he opens his mouth. Because if he's talking about a Jew, now let me say this too. I am a Jew and I'm not a Jew. Let me explain what I mean by that. Israel is made up of 12 tribes. I'm actually from the tribe of Levi. I'm a Cohen. I'm from the line of Aaron and Moses. So I'm actually a Levite within Israel. But for the sake of generalization in the modern world, all of that, what do we refer to anyone from any of the tribes? We refer to them as Jews. Now, I want to show you this because this is where it's going to make you realize the point here. So technically, in the hyper-technical sense, a Jew is someone from the tribe of Judah. So in that sense, not every Jew is Jewish, if you get what I'm saying. We are not all from the tribe of Judah. So why do we all use the name Jew? This is what's surprising again. It's a political statement. Because Judah is the kingly tribe for Israel. You see what I'm saying? So Judah is the head. It's the royalty. It's everyone is going to come under the leadership of Judah, even the Levites. So it's quite ironic that this Sam guy should talk about Jesus being Jewish, and he clearly doesn't understand that he's directly contradicting what he's going to say if he thinks this is anti-Zionism. This is like claiming Donald Trump is running not to be president. Like, how do you... He's campaigning not to be made president. It makes about as much sense as that. To claim Jesus is Jewish and then separate Zionism from Jesus being Jewish, that's a completely ridiculous, counterintuitive... I can't take it seriously. I don't know who this guy... I can't take that seriously. He can't honestly be educated if he's saying that.
You got to change your theologies. Number one, your view about Israel is wrong. This is why you're fighting a battle that's not worth fighting, because you have a wrong view of Israel. They're not God's chosen people. Go to Matthew 21, 33 to 44.
Listen to another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard. He put a wall around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a watchtower. He took the vineyard from farmers and moved to another place. When the harvest time approached, he sent his servants to the tenants to collect his fruit. The tenants seized his servants. They beat one, killed another, and stoned a third. Then he sent other servants to them, more than the first time, and the tenants treated them the same way. Last of all, he sent his son to them. They will respect my son, he said. But when the tenants saw the son, they said to each other, this is the heir. Come, let's kill him and take his inheritance. So they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him.
Now, before you move on, you understand what the parable is about, right?
Yes.
The vineyard is what?
Israel?
And the tenants, the vine dressers, are the rulers, right?
Yes.
And their last chance, their last hope of getting it right was what? The owner, who's God the Father, do as their last chance to get right. He sent his son last of all, right?
Right.
All right. So then Jesus already says their what response will be. They'll kill him.
Yes.
When they kill him, what is God going to do?
Therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants? Jesus said to them, have you never read in the scripture, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore, I tell you that the kingdom of God will be taken away from you.
From who?
From the Israelites.
Yeah, so why would you say they're God's chosen people? Jesus just said, when you kill me and reject me, the kingdom will be taken away from you. So
his understanding of the parable of the vine dresser is that he is speaking to, I think Sam's argument is that he is speaking this parable to the Jews, and he's saying that the Jews are the tenants, and that God has sent all of his prophets to I guess bring them to prophesy, and they've killed the prophets, they've killed all the people he sent, and now he has sent his son, and now they've killed the son, and so therefore the kingdom has been taken away from you, all the Jews. That's his argument.
Yeah, that's good old-fashioned replacement theology, anti-Jewish nonsense, really. Look, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. She answers him and says that the people it's being taken away from is Israel. I mean, okay, look, she's obviously more ignorant. That's why she's asking the questions, which is fine. He is, it's like the blind leading the blind, because she says it's taken away from Israel, which is not true. He then goes and confirms that and starts speaking about Jews. And I'm like, yeah, the parable is actually between Jesus and a certain number of leaders within the Sanhedrin. I mean, that's a whole different story to Israel or to Jews in general. Jesus is having a debate with, or talking about, the leaders within the Sanhedrin. So already this narrows it down from all of Israel, not just to Jews. So it's not even all Jews, because that's ridiculous. It's actually narrowing it down to less than 70 men, some of which actually follow Jesus. And all he's actually saying is, well, you guys are not handling your responsibility well, and so it's going to be taken from you. I mean, Caleb, here's the question. When you go to the story of Jesus coming into Jerusalem on a donkey, do you see all of the people lining up? Do you see throughout Jesus' ministry, every Jew, every person from Israel he encounters asking for him to die? Or do you see thousands upon thousands following him all the way to the point where he dies, and they welcome him into Jerusalem, not to die, but to come in as the king, as I've said, to come in as the Messiah, right? So does the logic actually line up from the text itself that all the Jews reject Jesus, and that he's now making this blanket statement that all of you are now going to be rejected? It just doesn't. You get what I'm saying? What about those people that welcomed him into Jerusalem? What about the thousands that followed him? Weren't they Israel?
Yeah, and I took a look at that scripture. It's funny because I think Sam is just so ignorant. Either so ignorant or he's doing this intentionally, because the next verse literally says the Pharisees recognize he was talking about them, not the Jews. about them.
Exactly.
And then it says that they're afraid of, excuse me, and that they were afraid of the crowds because they thought Jesus was a prophet. I mean,
Wow,
I think it's silly to think that like the Jews would hear that and say, thank you, Jesus, for taking the kingdom away from me. I'm so thankful."
Look at what you've just
I just think it's silly.
noted. Look what you just noted. The Pharisees acknowledge it was about them. Now let's be careful here, because I deal with enough Christians to know we need to be careful here. Pharisees followed Jesus too. There were thousands of Pharisees. Just like there's thousands of Christians and they don't all get along well. There's thousands of Pharisees. A lot of them follow Jesus. Paul, the most famous Pharisee in history, is the one that is given to the church to teach Gentiles. And let's note, for clarity's sake, Paul never stops being a Pharisee, even after accepting Jesus. Even after acknowledging Jesus as Messiah, Paul remains a Pharisee. So that puts the things into perspective. Because what a Christian will do, like Sam, is, you see, Jesus fought with the Pharisees and they didn't like each other, and this is what was going on all the time. But in reality, small groups had an issue with Jesus. And it's those groups who were attempting to interfere that Jesus is saying, yeah, you, and do remember, Pharisees formed part of the Sanhedrin. So the great Sanhedrin in Jerusalem, this is where they would have been. There were Sanhedrin, lower Sanhedrin all around, but the great Sanhedrin in Jerusalem would have had Pharisees and Sadducees. Does that make it all of the Pharisees in Israel? No. This is a handful. So if you think about it, Pharisees themselves, there was about, at the most, 72 seats on the great Sanhedrin. Okay, so now already we're moving from all of Israel. That's not true about who Jesus is having this issue with. We move to Jews. That's not who it is, because it's not all Jews that Jesus is having issue with. We're now down to 72 at the most men. And that's still not who Jesus is having issue with here, because a lot of them follow Jesus. In fact, the Joseph who buries Jesus is part of the Sanhedrin. Nicodemus, who comes to Jesus, is part of the Sanhedrin. So watch this. Let's be hyper-technical here. We've moved from Sam's ridiculous statement that it's all of Israel or all of Jews. We've already narrowed it down to that it's only a maximum of 70 people if you really, really want to be actually generous. And now we're discovering that, wait a minute, there were Pharisees and Sadducees that turned to Jesus within the Sanhedrin. Not all of them turned, but so now you've got less than 70 men who actually are the problem and have an issue with Jesus. That's a huge difference from God changing his mind about Israel. So I have to point that out so that when it says the Pharisees realized he's talking about them, this means you know that Jesus is talking to a group who are influential, who have leadership, and are absolutely rejecting him, yes. So he's firing back at them. And he's saying basically, because of what you guys have done, you haven't recognized me, I'm prophesying that you will lose your authority. Now that changes the context dramatically from what Sam is suggesting.
Wow, that is some pretty heavy stuff. I think one of the things I really enjoyed to learn about was the idea of the importance of Jesus in his Jewishness, and not just referring to him Jewish as an Israelite, but him being literally hyper-technically Jewish. He has the authority to take the throne of David, and how important that is in the concept of the term Messiah. Jesus is supposed to be in a human government that is preferred. that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob prefers the human government of Jesus. being in the line of David. I think that's such a fascinating point. And so I wanted to end this video by talking to you about something that Rabbi Darin has asked me to pass on to you. Darin has wanted to debate this man ever since I've shown him this video. And so I'm going to put a poll on YouTube for you to react to, and it's going to say, should Sam Shamoun debate Darin? And your options will be yes or no. And I want to put this poll together so that we can show Sam, hey, there's this guy that wants to debate you. He has issues with your theology, and we want to get Sam to respond to that and have a debate with Darin. So I wanted to ask you if you could please do that. Go ahead and go to my community and look for this poll, and please select yes on this poll. Should Sam Shamoun debate Darin? Thank you so much, and have a great day.